We continue because Accenture, the next conference will be given by a person who for more than 15 years has applied his experience in performing advanced security services and has designed offensive and defensive solutions for large companies and organizations around the world. He is one of the few professionals that has obtained the GX Security Expert certification. And I think he's going to talk about something that we use every day, 24 hours. I use 24 hours. WhatsApp, the end-to-end encryption. The end-to-end encryption of WhatsApp. It's one of the themes of the things he's going to talk about. So give a big applause to Raúl Siles.
Thank you.
Bienvenido, Raúl.
Gracias.
Welcome, Raúl, and we want to listen to you.
Okay, so welcome everyone to Spain, for those of you that are coming from abroad. So, as you have seen, we are going to talk about WhatsApp and end-to-end encryption. If you're here because you want to know how to hack WhatsApp with a single big red button, probably you will, it's better for you to leave the room. If you want to be here because you want to learn something, you want to know where the encryption is going on in the industry, definitely stay with us. So, because we have limited time, like 45, 60 minutes, you have an extended version of this presentation available on the DynoSec website. So you go to dynosec.com, you go to the lab, and the first publication there, it's available for you to go deeper into the different topics we are going to cover. So basically, we are going to start with focusing on some very brief introduction about crypto and some crypto elements that are being used in the WhatsApp end-to-end encryption protocol. And then we're going to go deeper into them, covering the main elements that are providing the capabilities we have today. And then if we have time at the end, we will talk about this backdoor vulnerability that was announced earlier this year, and then some conclusions and plenty of references for you to go in depth in this kind of topics. So first of all, if we talk about instant messaging, privacy, what is the face that comes to your mind when we talk about these topics? Who was the person that probably widespread privacy for the end users worldwide? Anyone that you clearly identify for that? Are you there? Someone want to try? Probably was Snowden, right? Making really people aware of the fact that we need to protect our communications, probably. Okay? Okay, in any crypto topic, we need to talk about Alice and Bob. They are trying to communicate. It seems they are a little bit worried nowadays because of the quantum crypto, okay, upcoming capabilities we are going to have, but still, potentially, they can protect their communications. So let's go in depth. Okay, WhatsApp has evolved from a very simple crypto mechanisms a few years ago that could be easily bypassed to what we have today, which is a really complex implementation and environment. Okay, as you probably know, there are more than 1 billion users, active users, okay? So we're going to go in depth into how the encryption works. Okay, it's called end-to-end encryption because both ends, okay, both users are going to encrypt the communications no matter who is in the middle. The WhatsApp servers, three-letter agencies, or any other elements that could be interested on their messages, okay? It's going to use something called noise pipes. It's a new protocol that it's replacing HTTPS, okay, in WhatsApp. And it's important for you to notice that end-to-end encryption is not fixing or solving all the security threats in WhatsApp. So still the WhatsApp servers can get metadata. They can obtain information about who is communicating with whom and how frequently they are doing that, what is the size of the data they are exchanging, so on and so forth. And the registration process is still, let's say, not covered by this kind of encryption. As you know, you need to provide a phone number so that you receive an SMS message so that you can identify yourself and your number. That's the idea. Okay? So let's jump into the main protocol. The main protocol is called axolotl, like a very specific kind of animal that typically lives in Mexico, or the signal protocol. And basically it's because these animals are capable of self-repairing parts of their body. So that's the idea of the protocol. The protocol pretends to be able to self-contain or self-recover from specific breaches, security breaches affecting the different keys we are using. That's the overall idea. The reason why we are here, or why I'm explaining that, is because probably you know, later last year in March, WhatsApp implemented that, but there are lots of other messaging solutions that are making use of Signal or variants of Signal. So it's something that it's important for you, because it's one of the reference crypto protocols that are becoming very, very common in our industry. So probably you are going to see that in other solutions in the future too. So keep that in mind. These are the two guys that are behind the Signal protocol. Okay, it's Open Whisper Systems, it's Moxie and Trevor. Okay, they designed and implemented the protocol, and they help WhatsApp, in fact, to do that, or Facebook nowadays. So let's start with a very brief crypto introduction for the main topics we need to understand before we go deeper into the protocol itself. So one of the main protocols or features we are going to use is Diffie-Hellman. Diffie-Hellman is an old exchange protocol that basically tries to generate a secret key between two parties, assuming that the channel they are communicating with is insecure. That's the overall idea. They are going to use long prime numbers for that. They are going to use exponentiation and the fact that the inverse mathematical formula, okay, would be the logarithm. Okay, it's difficult to solve. Let's say computationally expensive to solve. Okay, nowadays that's the overall idea. Keep in mind that still Diffie-Hellman is vulnerable to man-in-the-middle attacks. You need to be sure you're talking with the party you think you are talking to. That's a key point. So this is how Diffie-Hellman works. I mean, keep the general ideas, okay? Just that. Basically, we have Alice and Bob, and what they are doing is they are going to agree on specific mathematical elements there, such as prime numbers, and Alice is going to generate a secret, like a private key, and Bob is going to do the same. And then, applying the Diffie-Hellman mathematical formula, Alice is going to derive as a public key, something that is public, and is going to share that with Bob. And Bob is going to do the same. He's going to generate a public portion of the associated key, and is going to share that with Alice. Basically, due to the mathematical properties there, V, which is alpha to the power of lowercase b, okay? What Alice can do is take that value and do that to the power of a. So basically it has alpha to the power of b to the power of a. And Bob can do the same, can take a and do a to the power of b. As you can see on both sides, because this value is the same as alpha b multiplied by a, and this is a multiplied by b, they are the same value. So basically what they have done is they have exchanged public elements that are based on some secret or private elements, but as a result, they can have a common single shared value, which is a shared secret. That's the overall idea. This Diffie-Hellman exchange can be used in different scenarios. So one that is very well known is Diffie-Hellman ephemeral. Basically, we are going to use temporary keys instead of long-term keys. Okay? We're going to combine different kinds of keys in the Signal protocol. And then we have an implementation based on elliptic curves, which is another mathematical way of being able to implement the Diffie-Hellman protocol. Okay? Regarding elliptic curves, basically there are two that are well known nowadays, just focused on the X25519, because it's the one that is going to be used by Signal. So keep that in mind. Okay, so these specific elliptic curve functions were created by Daniel Bernstein a while ago, okay? Basically, keep in mind two main properties. One of them is they are working with 32-byte values. So the secret key is 32 bytes, the public key is 32 bytes, so on and so forth. And it can be implemented and used with a very high speed nowadays. So basically, the fact that your mobile phone is able to use WhatsApp and it's going to encrypt and decrypt every message with a different key, so we have a different key per message, is because it can make the computations and the calculations associated to that specific elliptic curve very quickly. So there is no performance impact on that. So that's the overall idea. How does it work? The same thing we saw before. So Alice and Bob, they both generate a secret, okay, a private key. They calculate a public key based on that private key, and the same principle applies. So basically, if I provide you my public and you calculate a formula with your private and my public, and I do the same, we end up on the same shared secret. So we have been able to share a secret over an insecure channel. That's the overall idea, okay? So with that main crypto concepts or theory, we can move forward into the protocol itself. So first of all, it's important for you to keep in mind that the goal of the protocol is to accomplish 3 different crypto properties. The first of them is perfect or forward secrecy. So basically, it's the fact that if someone compromises my keys now, he's not going to be able to get previous keys, old keys we used to encrypt traffic and data in the past. That's one idea. The second idea is something we call plausible deniability or deniable encryption. Is basically the fact that if the 2 users try to tell to a third party that this message was sent by the other party, they cannot do that. They know the message came from that party, but they cannot demonstrate to someone else that the message came from that party. The idea to understand that is, because we are using the same secret, I can encrypt messages as you, and I can tell a third party that this message was sent by you. But it's not, because it could be sent by me too, because we both know the key. So that's the idea behind that. And the third one is something we call future secrecy. It's like the opposite of forward secrecy. It's the idea that if someone breaks the keys now, okay, we are going to be able to generate future keys without those keys being compromised because of the current breach. Okay, that's the overall idea. So we want to have security in the past, in the future, no matter if we have breaches. So to do that, obviously we need to implement multiple protocols or components together to be able to accomplish that. So let me start with the first one. The first one is called, okay, the triple Diffie-Hellman, okay? Extended triple Diffie-Hellman, that's the idea, okay? Although you can see that it can have up to 4 different steps, but the 4th one is optional. So this is why it's called triple Diffie-Hellman, okay? So let me explain you what it's trying to do. It's a key exchange protocol. So Alice and Bob want to exchange keys, okay, over an insecure channel, as we have mentioned before. But they want to do that having in place the 3 crypto properties we have seen before. They are trying to accomplish that. And not only that, they want to generate a secret, a shared secret, that can be long life. So basically, when they establish a WhatsApp session, that session can remain there forever. And you keep sending messages inside the same session forever between 2 users, unless you replace your mobile phone or reinstall the app. But basically, that's the idea. Okay, that's important. These are asynchronous sessions. What does this mean? It means if I want to establish the session, even if one of the parties is not online. So Bob is offline, but Alice wants to start the session, and when Bob comes online later in the future, he will be able to move forward and derive the same secret with Alice. So that's something important, because if not, imagine, you need to always have another user online to be able to start the initial session, to be able to talk to him or her through WhatsApp. And this is not something we want to do. And that's it, okay? So we're going to establish the shared secret. How does it work? Basically, Bob needs to publish some information on the WhatsApp servers, the intermediate servers. Basically, it's a few keys that are going to be shared with Alice in case Bob is offline, so Alice can retrieve that information. So what Alice is going to do, when Alice wants to talk to Bob first, it's going to go to the server, retrieves what we call the key bundle, a pre-key bundle, Bob's keys, public keys, obviously, because they have been pushed to the server, and potentially the server could be untrusted, and then it's going to calculate the session key. And it's going to send an initial message to Bob. This initial message contains all the information required for Bob to do the same, to retrieve the information, public information and keys from Alice, perform the same calculations, and end up with the same shared secret. So now both share a secret, and they can start encrypting and decrypting traffic based on that. Okay? Let's go to take a look at that. So imagine we have Bob, Alice, and we have the servers in the middle. Bob has an identity key. It's a public, long-term, public and private. It's a keeper, long-term key that is going to be used to identify Bob. It's unique to Bob, okay? So it's going to submit that to the servers. Alice can retrieve the key and start encrypting data to Bob. So this is something we can do using public cryptography, and it will work. The main problem with that is that remember Japanese food, okay? There's a principle called tofu, which is trust on first use, that says Diffie-Hellman is vulnerable to man-in-the-middle attacks. I need to be sure I'm talking to Bob, and that public key in blue we saw before belongs to Bob and not to someone else. But that's a different topic that we need to accomplish in a different way, okay? In the case of WhatsApp, is made or is accomplished with the verification codes in order to be able to know that this specific person has this key associated to him or her. Okay, so with this first exchange, we saw based on the public key is not enough, because we can identify Bob, okay, but we don't have any forward secrecy at all. Okay, any traffic we encrypt with that specific key can be decrypted at any time. So we need to keep adding extra elements there. So what Bob is going to do is going to generate a set of keys. We call them pre-keys or pre-generated keys. They are also called one-time pre-generated keys. The reason is because they are only used once. So when someone wants to establish a session with me, is going to consume one of those keys. The key will be discarded and won't be reused, because you know that reusability of keys in crypto is not a very good idea. Okay? It helps you to break things. So it's going to upload the keys to the server. Alice wants to talk to Bob, so it's going to retrieve that key, and it's going to be able to generate a message. Okay, remember, this key can be removed because we don't need it anymore. It has been used by Alice, so not by any other user. And then Alice is able to talk to Bob using the public key and the public key, long-term, and the one-time key, okay? And we'll be able to talk to Bob. Remember, once Bob receives that communication, it can remove that from memory, from the app, so we don't have issues if someone compromises that key. The idea of that is that we get forward secrecy. We protect the keys that we have used so that if someone compromises the keys now, won't be able to attack previous communications. Still in that scenario, someone could impersonate, Bob and say, this is a one-time key from Bob, but it's not. So we need something else too. So we have the public key, and now we have a new key that has been signed by Bob. So only Bob can sign that key with his own, let's say, pink private key here. It has all the one-time pre-generated keys, and it's going to upload all this plus the one-time keys to the servers. So now Alice can retrieve all those keys in order to be sure that it is Bob, it's a key that has been signed by Bob, so it's him, and a one-time key so that we ensure forward secrecy. That's the overall idea. This is what we call the pre-key bundle, the set of keys Alice requires to be able to start speaking to Bob. Okay, that's the idea. Okay, and with that, it's going to be able to perform this triple Diffie-Hellman exchange. Okay, so basically we are At this point, we are matching all the properties we were trying to accomplish at that point. So let me recap that. We have the public key, the identity of Bob. We have a signed key, okay, from Bob. So we know it's Bob because only he can sign that. We are submitting that to the servers. We have the one-time keys so that we don't reuse them, okay? One per user, per session, basically. And this whole set of keys, okay, is retrieved by Alice. This is the pre-key bundle. And now Alice needs something else, her own keys. So Alice also has an identity key that represents Alice, okay? And also an ephemeral key. It's a temporary key that we are going to use for this session. That's the idea. And with all these components, now Alice is able to implement, or sorry, let's go there, to perform the triple Diffie-Hellman. It's going to use the identity key from Bob, the sign per key from Bob, and the one-time key from Bob. It's going to use its own identity key and the ephemeral temporary key, and it's going to perform different Diffie-Hellman exchange, or even 4 if we have keys still in the server that we can use, in order to derive the search secret. So with that, we are ensuring, as we tell, forward secrecy, because we are using ephemeral temporary keys. We can authenticate Alice by Bob. We can authenticate Bob by Alice. We can have forward secrecy partially, okay? And we can have perfect forward secrecy because these are keys that we are not going to reuse anymore and we're going to remove them as soon as possible, okay? So these are the properties we are trying to accomplish. So with that, we have a shared secret, something that is shared between both. In this case, only Alice has been able to obtain the shared secret because remember, we assume Bob is offline, has not been connected to the network during all this time, okay? That's the idea. So we have mutual authentication with the identity keys, and then we have, sorry about that, forward secrecy between the ephemeral temporary keys, okay? Okay, so in order to derive the shared secret, we basically combine the output of all these different exchanges to be able to get a 32-byte key, as we mentioned before, based on the elliptic curve 25.5.19 standard, okay? That's the idea. So the next question would be, how can Bob obtain the same shared secret? In order to do that, Alice needs to send Bob what we call the initial message. It's a message that contains Alice's keys so that Bob can perform the same computations. And basically, that's the idea. This initial message from Alice, okay, it's going to contain the identity key from Alice, the ephemeral key from Alice, and an identifier of the temporary key we use from the server belonging to Bob. So with that, Bob has all the pieces missing from his side. Basically, it has the identity key from Alice, the ephemeral, it can identify its own one-time temporary key, and it can calculate the same 3H there. That's the idea, okay? And as a result, it will get the same secret. So now we have the same we had before, a Diffie-Hellman exchange, but a much more complex Diffie-Hellman exchange trying to meet all the properties we mentioned initially. Okay, that's it. Remember, all the private keys can be removed from memory, trying to provide forward secrecy and avoid these keys being compromised and therefore someone being able to decrypt previous sessions. Okay, so the protocol has been completed. Are you okay with that? With this general overview of how the protocol works and all that? Basically, that's the beginning. Just the beginning is the initial protocol we use to have a shared secret. But now, we need to do something else to be able to continuously generate messages between both parties and be able to encrypt and decrypt them with a specific unique keys per message. So in order to do that, we need something else. We need a new protocol or algorithm that was called double ratchet. Okay? So what is the double ratchet algorithm? Let me try that. So the double ratchet algorithm is basically, what are we trying to accomplish here? We have a shared secret, and now we want to have or to be able to implement the crypto properties we saw before, future secrecy, forward secrecy, and deniable encryption, in a protocol where we encrypt every message with a different key. So we need to move forward or evolve the keys we have so that every time we derive or we generate new keys from previous keys, and that way we can keep moving forward in the protocol and deriving new keys for new messages. That's the overall idea. Okay, so imagine we don't have that. Imagine that we have the shared secret and we want to encrypt and decrypt. Of course, we can do that. They both have the same secret. This is symmetric encryption. They can encrypt something, the other end will decrypt that with the same key, okay? And it will work. But we won't have the properties we are looking for. So that's the main drawback there. So in order to have the properties, we are going to have, and this is why it's called double ratchet, two ratchets. Two things that are evolving or moving forward over time. One of them is a Diffie-Hellman ratchet, and this is going to provide future secrecy. The other one is asymmetric, it's like a hashing algorithm ratchet, providing forward secrecy. Okay, so let's take a look at them. Okay, let's start with how it works. In order to be able to work with both ratchets, every time Bob or Alice is sending a message to the other end, it's going to share its current Diffie-Hellman key. So the Diffie-Hellman keys are going to evolve, they are going to change, and the last one we have is the one we are going to send to the other party. Okay, so that's the idea. We will see that in green. Okay? And then the goal is to get a different message key per message. Okay? In red color. So that's the overall idea. Okay. To be able to implement that, we are going to use something called chains, okay? Some kind of data structure that is going to be able to allow us to manage different keys. And we need three chains. The root chain, used for Diffie-Hellman and all that, and then a sending chain and a receiving chain. Whatever I'm going to encrypt with the key generated by the sending chain is going to be decrypted by the receiving chain of the other party, and the opposite. My receiving chain is associated to the sending chain of Bob. Okay, that's the idea, Bob and Alice. Okay, so what is let's start with the second one. Let's start with the symmetric ratchet. The symmetric ratchet basically is like a hash function, okay, that basically it's going to get some input, some previous key, and it's going to generate a new key to evolve the chain. So these are the keys used for the sending and receiving chains, and it's going to generate a unique message key. Okay, and the main principle of this kind of implementation is that this is a one-way function, like a hashing function. Think about SHA-1, SHA-256, so on and so forth, okay? Involving keys, this is something we call HMAC, okay? But it's that idea, that you cannot obtain the previous key from the current key or, okay, reverse the algorithm, okay, backward. Basically, that's the main principle there, okay? So we want to have unique message keys, okay? Once we iterate once in the algorithm, is what we go one step, we generate a new key, and then another key, and another key, and another key. That's the overall idea, okay? What about the other ratchet? The ratchet that is managing Diffie-Hellman keys and is evolving and all that. Okay, it's easy to understand. Every time Bob and Alice exchange a message, they need to provide the other end their current Diffie-Hellman key. And this key is going to evolve over time too. Okay? So that's the idea. The root chain is the one that is going to be used, okay, from the Diffie-Hellman exchange, okay, to generate like a new secret, but it's a new secret only for the root chain. Okay? So what is the initial value to initialize the root chain? So, okay, what common shared secret do we have to initialize the root chain and from there start deriving new keys? Is the green shared key we obtain, okay, from the extended 3P Diffie-Hellman before. So that initial shared secret in green we got is the one we are going to use to initialize the root chain, and from there start creating new keys. That's the overall idea. Okay, so let me show you that, and from there the keys, we will generate keys for the sending and for the receiving chains, so that we can encrypt and decrypt the messages we are sending or we are receiving. That's the overall idea. So let me explain you that in detail, okay? If we get a message, let's think about message 1 from Alice, A1. So we have the first message from Alice coming in. We apply the extended triple Diffie-Hellman algorithm. We generate the share secret. We initialize the root chain. We go one step. We generate the key for the sending, sorry, in this case, okay, it's Alice, so the sending chain. And we go one step on that ratchet too. So this is one of the ratchets, and this is the other ratchet. And we generate the first key for the first message coming from Alice, so A1. We encrypt the message with this key, and we submit that to Bob. So Bob should be able to apply the same process to end up with the same key. So he's able to decrypt the first message coming from Alice. That's the idea. So how Bob is going to do that? How is going to be able to obtain that? So basically, remember, this is what we explained before. We have applied one step of the ratchet, so we have derived the keys. That's simple. And then each party is basically playing ping pong. They are continuously sending public keys to each other regarding Diffie-Hellman to be able to derive those keys too. So let me show you that with an example, which is much better. Every single message is going to have those keys to evolve that. So let's see that with a specific example. The Diffie-Hellman exchange is always going to evolve in different steps in order to generate a new Diffie-Hellman output. That's the idea, okay, with the keys of both parties. So that's the idea. We have we have Bob, we have Alice. Bob submits to Alice his current public key. Alice is going to take his current key, it's going to apply a Diffie-Hellman, and it's going to generate some output, okay? The next message coming from Alice to Bob will do the same thing, okay? So that's it, okay? It will submit that, Alice performs one step, and it generates the output. The output will be used to populate the different chains we saw before, the root chain in this case, okay? That's the idea. And they are continuously playing ping pong, okay? Table tennis, okay, in order to do that. Okay, so let's do that, or let's go into see that in action. Okay, so we have Bob generates a new key, submits that to Alice with the first message. Alice generates a new key, iterates one step on the Diffie-Hellman ratchet, generate an output, okay, and that output will be the same of the next output that is generated by Bob. When Alice submits the next message to Bob, it will have the same public key. Bob will do the same computation. Its previous key plus current Alice key will generate the same output. They both have the same output. They can encrypt and decrypt with that output specifically. Okay, and the same idea will happen. Bob will generate a new key for the next step, the next communication. It will be remaining there. Okay, so the next step will be ready for the next message we need to send to Alice. Okay? So let's take a look at that. Now, Bob submits a new message to Alice. Alice receives the key. It's going to calculate the output from the current key received by Bob and my previous key. And this output will be the same output that Bob calculated before. That's the overall idea. Okay? So with that, they can continue. Then Alice will get ready for the next message. So it can perform the calculation and get ready before, okay, or in advance, so that when she is going to send the next message, she has the calculation in place. When she submits the message to Bob, same process, okay? Bob will do the appropriate calculations to derive the same output and, okay, get ready for the next message that will be submitted to Alice. I think you can see the whole process that it's going to be repeated continuously here. Okay, so that's the idea. Okay, in reality, these keys that have been derived there are not the message keys. These are the keys that are used to populate the chains we mentioned before, the root, sending, and receiving chains. So in this case, it seems like obvious that the key generated in one end, when I send messages, is the key that is generated on the other end for receiving my messages. So whatever I encrypt here will be decrypted here with the same key. Okay, that's the overall concept. In reality, it's not that way. Okay, in reality, okay, instead of using those for the sending and receiving chains, we put in the middle the root chain. So let me explain you that. Here we have still the same process going back and forth, deriving the keys, as we saw before. But in reality, as I mentioned, instead of being this, the receiving and sending chains, okay, we have moved that to the right, and we have put in the middle the root chain. So let me show you that. The root chain will be there generating the keys. With that, we have an extra key derivation function, and in that way, we can ensure much better forward secrecy. That's the overall idea. Okay? So that's the root chain. But the process is the same. I derive a new key, I perform 2 steps, I can generate the outputs that will fit the new function that, in fact, will generate the final sending and receiving chains, okay, for the other 2 chains. That's it, okay? Remember, the first key we use to initialize the root chain is the search secret we got from the extended triple Diffie-Hellman. That's something we need from somewhere. So let's put all the pieces together. So initially, Alice and Bob apply the extended triple Diffie-Hellman. They derive the search secret. Alice submits the initial message so that Bob can derive the same search secret. And from there, they initialize the root chain with the search secret, and they start playing with the 2 ratchets. Okay? The one used by Diffie-Hellman to ensure future secrecy, the one used by the key derivation functions with the 3 chains, root, sending, and receiving, to ensure forward secrecy. And from there, we can move forward and start generating unique messages or unique keys per message, which is the end goal of the protocol. Okay, so we initialize that, then we submit that to Alice. Alice can derive the first key for the first message she's going to send, and it's able to send that message. Okay? This is basically all the pieces we have explained there in the tiny diagram. Okay? Once we have that, and Alice receives a message coming from Bob, he can do the same. He can derive all the keys in order to be able to have the first key for the first message that is going to be received from Bob. That's the overall idea over there. Okay? So keep in mind that up to here, we have only looked at Alice's side, not Bob's side. Okay? In order to look at Bob's side, basically we will need to do the same calculations on the other side, and as you have seen, the sending key, it's the same one as the receiving key on the other end. So they can encrypt and decrypt the message with the same key. Okay? That's the idea. So let's take another look to that in action. Okay? Alice is going to send the first message, is A1, so it's going to receive Bob's public key, calculate or initialize the root chain, as we mentioned before, get the value there, derive the output, and be able to generate the sending chain. Okay? With the sending chain, it's going to iterate 1 step and generate the first message key. And it's going to be able to encrypt the first message with that. Okay. When Alice receives a response from Bob, okay, it can do the same calculation. It can derive the receiving chain, and it can generate the key for the first message that will come from Bob, okay, which is B1. Okay? And it will get ready for the next message. That's it. Okay? So Alice sends the second message, A2. Okay? It's going to submit that to Bob and generate an A2 message. Okay? Bob, for example, sends her second message to Alice, so they are going to come up with the second key associated to Bob messages, and from there, they are going to move back and forth, generating keys per message. That's the overall idea, okay? In fact, we are not going to cover that, but the protocol is ready to manage lost or delayed messages. So you can keep keys for messages you have not received, but potentially, because you think you're going to receive them in the future, and therefore you will need to decrypt them. So everything is ready for that scenario too, okay? And that's the whole process. Basically, here you can see that Bob is sending another new message, and Alice can iterate one step, generate the receiving key, and generate the unique keys to decrypt those messages coming from Bob. Okay? My main goal with all this explanation, which is I hope your brain is hurting now, okay, that's the purpose of the explanation, is that you can see how complex the protocol is and all the pieces that have been put together to be able to ensure the different crypto properties we mentioned at the beginning. That's the overall idea. If we look into Alice and Bob's simultaneously, it will be something like that, okay? So we have been looking to Alice's side before, and something similar is going on Bob's side. So that's it, okay? So this is how it works. Basically, we have the extended triple Diffie-Hellman exchange to derive the initial share secret, and from that, we are initializing different chains to be able to send and receive messages with unique keys that are specific for every single message. That's it. Okay, how are we doing regarding time? We are fine? Okay, so let me go into something that was published, okay, early this year. Okay, probably you read about that. Someone mentioned there was a backdoor or vulnerability bug or feature, something like that in WhatsApp. It was a bug. It was not it was a feature, okay, not a vulnerability, basically. So what was it? So let me explain you that. Remember we have said before that Diffie-Hellman is still vulnerable to man in the middle, because you need to be sure that you are talking to who you think you are talking to. So basically you need to have some kind of matching between the identity of the other user, so Alice needs to verify Bob's verification code, which basically is a code that provides you the information between that session taking place between Alice and Bob. Okay? Because if not, you might receive a public key from someone else, okay, that if, for example, that is not Bob. So you need to have that match between the identity and the key, okay, and there is nothing that is providing that information to you except the verification between both parties. Okay, for that, WhatsApp is going to generate a code based on the public keys of both users that you can, okay, verify with the other party. That's the overall idea. Scanning that, I mean, it could be a QR code that you scan with, if you have physical contact between the two users, or if not, it's converted to a 60-digit code that you can read to the other party, so on and so forth. Okay, it's some usability improvements there for the users to be able to verify the different codes. Okay, so the backdoor vulnerability that appeared basically was based on that. Let me show you that. Let me show you the details. Okay, they mentioned backdoor at the beginning, then they renamed that to vulnerability. It could be a feature, it could be a bug. Think about that. If Alice sends a message to Bob, but Bob is offline, the message will have only one tick, okay, saying it has been delivered, but Bob didn't read the message. That's the idea, okay? Then, imagine that at that point, Bob changes its own public key, okay? How can Bob change its own identity public key? For example, because he replaces his current phone, mobile phone, by a new device, or because he decides to reinstall the app, okay? And a new key is going to be generated that is not related with the previous key, okay? There are places in the world where this tends to be really common. People changes phones frequently or reinstall the app frequently, things like that, okay? So what happens? When Alice wants to communicate with Bob, okay, is going to retransmit the new messages with the new key from Bob. Okay? So the problem there is, imagine that someone is in the middle impersonating Bob. It's providing a new key for Bob, but it's not Bob in reality, and Alice is going to submit the pending messages that were there, let's say, queued, not read by Bob originally, to Bob. So what's the problem there? That the new third party could decrypt the messages coming from Alice that were not delivered to Bob previously. Okay, that's the main threat, okay, associated to that. Bob could be notified, but it will be notified afterwards. So it's too late, because the third party has already had access to Alice's messages, okay, or messages coming from Alice to Bob, okay, encrypted with the new keys. So how this is possible? Okay, it's basically an implementation decision. So for example, in WhatsApp, because they have so many users in the world, they decided to disturb as less as possible the users, basically doing that automatically. Even if your key changes, it's going to automatically resubmit, resend previous undelivered messages to the new key, or encrypted with the new key to the same user automatically. That's the idea. For example, in Signal, the Signal messaging app, which is implementing the Signal protocol too, okay, this is a blocking behavior. Basically, the messages are not submitted to the user with the new key automatically. Okay, the sender is asked first if he wants to submit those messages with the new key. It's a usability trade-off. It's a trade-off between usability and security. In WhatsApp, they decided to improve usability. In Signal, they decided to improve security in this specific balance, okay? So basically, this is how it looks like. You have WhatsApp, you submitted a message, this one was delivered to the user, so it has 2 ticks. This one has only 1 tick, has not been delivered to the user. In the middle, the user changes the phone, reinstalls the app. It has a new key. What the WhatsApp user will see? It will see that the code has changed, but the message has been submitted with the new key. It's too late. The message already went through the network, okay? If we look at that into Signal, the behavior is different. We have one message that was delivered, a second message that was not, and now what is going to happen? The user is going to see that the key, the identity key for the other user has changed, but as you can see here, the message has not been delivered yet. The user needs to approve manually that he wants to submit the message to the other party with the new key. So basically, that's it. Okay, it's the different behavior. Once you do that, it's going to ask you for that, and therefore, it will submit the message. Okay, so basically, it's this kind of trade-off that is very common in our industry, where you need to decide between usability and security for some specific decisions. So with that, we are going to end up the talk with some technical conclusions I want you to keep in mind. First of all, as you can see, the kind of protocols and algorithms we are using in day-to-day communications nowadays are really complex compared to what we have like 3, 4, 5 years ago. This Signal protocol, it's becoming like the industry reference for lots of different messaging, secure messaging communication solutions or apps, okay? So keep that in mind. And for every software, like this kind of apps and messaging solutions, there are things that we need to keep in mind. There's always a trade-off between usability and security. So we need to take design decisions based on that, okay? It's important to have open source software. I'm not saying that commercial software is less secure than open source software. It depends on the piece of software, basically. But having open source software, especially in the Snowden era, where a lot of people are worried about their communications being intercepted, so on and so forth, it's important so that someone can review the code of that specific app or solution. It's not only that we need to have open source software, but we need to have something called reproducible builds. It's basically what you have here in the link, is basically the fact that you can take the source code of the app from GitHub, compile that, generate the binary or the final app, and be able to compare that that app is exactly the same app you have on the official stores, okay, in Google Play or the App Store. And you can verify that's the same app because the hash, let's say the cryptographic hash of the app you compiled And the app that is publicly available is the same, so you know that the source code is the same. If you cannot do that, there is another threat, and if someone could modify the open source code, you are reviewing some code, but the code associated to the public app is a different one. So you need to be careful with that. Obviously, as you can see, we have software that is really, really complex nowadays. So we need to have extra capabilities or verification capabilities to really ensure that the software is secure. A very good example that we have suffered recently is the cracks attacks for Wi-Fi networks. Okay, even if the four-way handshake has been mathematically proven, there were things that were not included in that verification process, and therefore we have suffered a new vulnerability affecting that. Okay, in any case, WhatsApp decided to do things in a specific way, usability. Signal decided to do things in another way, promoting security. My recommendation is create solutions that provide the user the option to decide. The user should be able to decide if they want to promote usability or security depending on the user profile or any other aspects. So providing advanced configuration options in the apps will help the user to decide what he prefers, usability or security, okay? And then you will decide what is the default option. But the default option is important for the end user, but for the more advanced users, it's not relevant because if they have the capability to change that, okay, they can decide the security level they want to implement. So basically that's it. I know that it has been a tough talk because we have covered a very complex topic in a very small amount of time. Remember, you have the extended version of the presentation if you want to go deeper into some of the algorithms that are finally used for the encryption and decryption and key lengths and other details. But at least I hope you have had a good overview of how the Signal protocol works and what is the different keys involved in the process and the change that take place there. For those of you that want to go deeper into this topic and all the different design decisions and all that, there are plenty of references here for you to digest and go through. So you will have that available on the presentation. Thanks a lot for remaining and surviving, even if the food, okay, the lunch is the next step in your day. And thank you for being here, and again, welcome to Spain. I hope you enjoy the competition during these couple of days and enjoy the conference too. Thank you. So if someone has any question regarding the different things we have covered, something that was not clear, we move quickly there, please don't hesitate to ask them. Any question? Is there one over there? Okay. So try to, if you have questions, let them know so you get the microphone, and please stand up because with the light it's difficult to see you here. Yeah.
¿Puedo hablar en español o en inglés?
Español o inglés.
Can I speak in Spanish? I always had the doubt about the system that's used by WhatsApp, if it's very different to the system that's used by Telegram for encryption.
Encryption capabilities in WhatsApp, are they different from the Telegram, the other messaging app? Encryption capabilities, yeah, they are completely different. I mean, Telegram implemented their own encryption solution, which is not based at all in Signal, so there's no relationship there.
Tengo entendido que Telegram es más.
I understand that Telegram is securer.
At the beginning, when WhatsApp was using a different encryption mechanism, basically at some point WhatsApp was using MD5 based on the user password. The user password was related to the unique identifier of the phone or even the MAC address. Okay, it was really poor security, and it was considered really insecure, and definitely at that point Telegram was much more secure. Once WhatsApp has implemented the Signal protocol, it's difficult to compare both. And basically with Telegram, okay, there are a lot of information out there, but no one has published an in-depth research on the Telegram encryption implementation. So you know probably that there is a challenge there. If someone can break it, it will get a bug bounty prize and things like that. But it's difficult to compare them, both of them nowadays because of the complexity of both. But they are completely different. Yeah, keep that in mind.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
Question over there, I think, probably was the same one. Okay, another
Is
one
there any
here.
question?
I want to ask you about the Matrix protocol. I know it's based on Signal, the Signal protocol also, but what's your opinion about it? I want to build my own server with, I know Matrix is some person you can build your own server for end-to-end encryption.
Okay, so can you repeat the
What's
question?
your opinion about that, the Matrix protocol?
Okay, the protocol,
Yeah.
as you can see, the beauty of this protocol is that it's open, so it's well known. You have the white papers with all the details about the protocol, and as you can see, it's quite complex. And from a verification perspective, there was one university that did a verification research on the protocol. And basically, based on their in-depth analysis from a mathematical perspective of the protocol, they didn't cover all the aspects of the protocol, but the main ones. And the outcome was that it seems secure enough for the communications we are managing nowadays. The problem with that is that these are really complex protocols that is very difficult to go in depth and really identify there is no vulnerability on them. Okay? So more research is coming from other people to evaluate the protocol, but definitely it's much more secure compared to what we had before. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Other questions? So probably you want to get some food. So
Thank you, Raúl, Siles. Big
thank you.